speaker. And our next speaker is Professor Balogun. Professor.
Good. Thank you very much for inviting me to this unique program. And I'm glad to be in the midst of experts of various disciplines. I am not an infectious disease expert, and I'm not a vaccinologist. I'm a professor of medicine and a consultant cardiologist. But since I've trained so many doctors and specialists, I think I'll be able to advise with respect to my topic. I've been asked to speak on myths in relation to COVID vaccine, and the misconceptions, and to address some of this. We have to understand that these myths are not as a result of lack of intelligence or people who are not educated. These myths are cut across many sections of the society. I have colleagues who believe in some of these myths. So we understand that people have genuine concerns. And as Dr. Amma said, if you remember the Tuskegee issue, the injustice of the past, then you can understand why BAME, ethnic group, are reluctant to participate in vaccination. Now, one of the myths is that the vaccine can give you COVID. The truth is the vaccine cannot give you COVID. It cannot, because the vaccine is not made from attenuated virus like the older vaccines. And the spike protein does not have the capacity disease. So this is not true. None of the vaccines use the attenuated virus. The second myth is that the vaccine is a way of tracking people, monitoring people through microchips or RFID tags, and can be used for mind control. Again, that is not true, because if it is to track people, to monitor people, that is already in existence. It's easy if you have a mobile phone to be monitored. If you have credit cards, international passport, you can easily be monitored, especially when crime takes place. People can be detected as to where they've been and so on, how much money they've spent. So there are many ways by which people can be tracked right now. So I don't think the vaccine, which is an expensive project, is going to be the one for tracking the whole world. Okay, so phones have microchips. The other thing is that there is no microchip in the vaccine. There's no metal in the vaccine. Okay, and the contents of the vaccine are listed. You can check the contents yourself. There is nothing metallic in there. The ingredients have been published. So microchips, not true. Another myth, a third one, is that the vaccine contains luciferase enzyme, which makes firefly glow. And so those who believe that this is true believe that the injected arm begins to emit a glow, so that it becomes easy for those who are vaccinated to be detected and monitored. Again, as I said earlier on, there are ways to monitor people. And you notice that people who commit crimes sometimes will not use mobile phones. They trash their mobile phone, okay? And if you turn on you're on internet and you turn it on, you can see your address and where you are exactly on your phone or any device that you are using. So this is not true. There are easier ways of monitoring people. Okay, fourth myth is that these vaccines can change DNA and genetic material. Again, this is not true. And because people hear of nucleic acid, and we know that DNA, as human beings, we have DNA. Okay, so people start to think when they hear RNA and DNA that, okay, this is going to change my DNA. Again, it's not true. Number one, the messenger RNA vaccines don't end, I mean, the messenger RNA vaccines, the RNA does not enter the nucleus where the DNA is. And the thing about messenger RNA is that it is easily trashed. Okay, after the response, after the immune need has been generated, the response has taken place, the immune response has taken place, the mRNA is trashed, it is shredded. It's not like it's going to stay in your body. Okay, so it does not enter the nucleus where the DNA is, and it does not, there is no evidence whatsoever that it affects the human DNA. Okay, and if we look at it also, if it is true that it affects the human DNA, I don't think you will find presidents of nations taking the vaccine, prime ministers taking the vaccine, doctors taking the vaccine. No doctor will want anything that will change his DNA. Nurses taking the vaccines, politicians, business people, they don't want to lose their money. They won't take anything that will change their DNA. So it's not true. DNA will not be changed. The fifth myth is that vaccines cannot be produced within a year. Okay, because the traditional way of producing vaccine takes much longer. And so there is suspicion that the current COVID-19 vaccines, something has been done, that people think that there must have been shortcuts which will make the vaccine not to be safe. This is not true. We should realize that in every area of technology, there has been advances, improvement. If you think of cars, computer, it's so funny. I just remember when I was doing my bachelor's degree and my final year, there was no computer. If you go to the library, you go through the old journals, you dust them, okay? But right now you can search for journals, you can use Google, you can go to any website. So there are advances, and so even in medical care, we can see the advances taking place. So we should not be surprised to have advances in the area of vaccine technology. And I want to say that the lady who was at the forefront of the development of mRNA vaccines is a Black lady. She's a Black lady. And if you take the Pfizer vaccine, there are Black people who were part of those who conducted the research. So it is not like there's a strategy and there are shortcuts. We have to understand that we're in a global pandemic and people are dying. Okay, and in producing this vaccine, the governments were concerned, people were concerned, a lot of funding went into it, which is not the typical way vaccines are funded. And then a lot of researchers got so interested in it. And because there was a pandemic, there were ready volunteers for this. Okay, so the development of this vaccine, the testing of it, went through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials. No shortcut at all. And these clinical trials involved over 70,000 people. Most drug trials don't have that kind of population. Even the landmark drug trials don't get that kind of patient or volunteer population that we've had with these vaccines. And again, the research has been ongoing in developing a vaccine against coronavirus, because this is not the first coronavirus that we've had, and this has been over 10 years, failures every time. Okay, and like I said, a lady who was at the forefront, I think it was a PhD, okay, at the forefront of developing mRNA vaccine. It's a Black lady, and this is a breakthrough for medicine. And it is timely that the technology could be applied during this pandemic. And we can see from what happened in Israel, they're using one of the vaccines. There has been over 90% reduction in infection because of the way the Israeli community adopted vaccination. So we need to realize that. And then the sixth one is that it has long-term side effects, severe side effects. Okay, but if Dr. Amma said, if you look at the risk-benefit, the benefit-risk ratio, you can ask a question: what are the long-term side effects of COVID? Even in people who are asymptomatic, people who have not come down with the disease in such a way that they've been hospitalized, what are the long-term effects of those asymptomatic infections? We don't know yet. And we've had people talking about long COVID, okay? And we've had reports of people having all kinds of symptoms 6 months after COVID-19 infection. So we cannot assume that the mere fact that you don't have symptoms also means that you are totally safe from this virus. Okay, so most vaccines, when we see side effects with vaccines, it's usually all the side effects are usually under a period of a few months, weeks to months. I cannot recollect any vaccine that had long-term side effect, and I don't think this vaccine will be different. Okay, so there is no long-term side effects. Okay, and look at the number of people who have participated. We haven't heard of long-term side effects so far, and we can keep monitoring. And there is no doubt that those who are experts in this area of vaccine research know and have stated clearly that there are no long-term side effects. If we look at the United Kingdom, I think more than 60 million people have been vaccinated, and we haven't heard of any severe side effects amongst the 16 million people. In my household, my wife and I have been vaccinated, and I can say that we don't have any serious side effect. Okay, the seventh one is why. Okay, let me quickly say that the vaccines, I mean, the side effects are generally mild, usually fatigue, low-grade fever, chills, body aches, and so on. Some people say that this is another myth, that if the survival is 99%, why then bother to get the vaccine? Again, as I've said, do not minimize the risk of long COVID, okay? And we have to think of the vulnerable in society as well. An eighth myth is that it causes fertility problems. This is not true. There was a study that looked at COVID in terms of spermatogenesis in 19 male patients, and found that patients with COVID have impaired spermatogenesis. So COVID itself can reduce fertility, and there's no evidence that the vaccine reduces fertility in any way. So there's a greater risk with the infection. Okay, Another myth is that the antibodies that are produced will cross-react with placental proteins in women and make them infertile. This is not true. The British physician who stated this, who gave this idea, which has been debunked, has retired. Okay, and then other scientists have debunked this idea because the spike proteins are not similar at all to placenta proteins. Some people have said the vaccine is not safe. I've addressed that. Millions have taken the vaccine already. Some people say, okay, you don't need to wear a mask after the vaccine. That's not true. We should still wear a mask after the vaccine because the potential for infection is there and we can still spread to others. Okay, so the 11th myth, I will soon round up now. A person who has had COVID does not need a vaccine. That's not true. Because the natural immunity associated with COVID does not seem to last long. And there have been reinfection in patients who have had COVID. Again, finally, 12th myth, COVID vaccine is the mark of the beast, or 666. I mean, and this myth is generally amongst Christians. This is not true because number one, the vaccine, the 666 is supposed to be given at the right hand, okay, or the forehead. But you will find that the COVID vaccine is given to shoulders. So this cannot be 666. And there's evidence that genuine believers will not take the mark. And of course, the Antichrist system is already in operation. And the Antichrist must be in existence before 666 has occurred. There's no evidence that the Antichrist is in existence right now. So really, this is not 666. All right, so thank you very much for listening. I hope I was able to address some of these myths. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Great. Thanks so very much, Professor Balogun,